Right now, somewhere in the world, a perfectly healthy person is going about their day, cleaning out a dusty old room, driving their car with the windows down, or sitting at a picnic table, completely unaware that they are inhaling a virus with a kill rate of up to 50%. Not 5%. Not 15%. 50%. That means if 10 people in a room catch it, 5 of them will die. And the terrifying part? There is no cure. There is no vaccine. And the early symptoms feel exactly like a cold. The name of that virus is hantavirus. And before this video is over, you are going to realize that you have already been to most of the places where people catch it. Some of them are places you visit every single week. But here is what makes this even more unsettling. As of this very week, May 2026, hantavirus is no longer just a rural, outdoors problem. It has just appeared on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. 3 people are dead. And for the first time, investigators believe it may have spread directly from person to person. This virus is changing. And what you are about to learn could save your life. Stay with me, because place number 1 on this list is somewhere most of you cleaned last month, and almost none of you did it safely. Place 1. Your own garage or garden shed. You would never think to fear your own garage. It is your space. You built it. You organized it. You know every corner of it. And that is exactly the problem. Garages and garden sheds are among the single highest risk environments for hantavirus transmission anywhere in the world, and the reason is brutally simple. Rodents love them. Mice and rats do not need an invitation. A gap the size of a dime, roughly 6 millimeters, is all a mouse needs to enter your garage. And once inside, they do not leave. They nest, they breed, they urinate, and they defecate all over your belongings, your tools, your boxes, and your floors. And here's the critical fact that most people do not know. You do not have to touch the rodent or its droppings to get infected. You simply have to breathe near them. When you open that garage door and drag out the lawnmower you haven't touched since October, every shuffle of your feet, every sweep of a broom, every box you slide across the floor, all of that sends microscopic particles of dried rodent urine and feces floating directly into the air. You breathe them in. And once those particles reach your lungs, the virus begins replicating inside the lining of your blood vessels. The most documented cases of hantavirus in the United States occur in exactly this scenario. A homeowner opens a closed-up space. They do a little cleaning. No gloves. No mask. They feel fine. Then 2 to 4 weeks later, they develop what feels like the flu. Fever. Muscle aches. Fatigue. They rest. They take some ibuprofen. And then, within days, their lungs begin to fill with fluid. The window between "I feel a little sick" and "I cannot breathe and need emergency intubation" can be less than 48 hours. But here is the part that makes this story even more harrowing. Most people who die from hantavirus did not know they were in danger, because the place where it got them looked completely normal. Just like place number 2 on this list, a place that millions of people drive to every single year for rest, relaxation, and fresh air. And they have no idea what might be waiting for them inside. Place 2. Vacation cabins and rental cottages. There is something deeply ironic about the fact that the place you go to escape the stress of your life could be the place that kills you. But for hantavirus, vacation cabins are one of the most historically deadly environments on the list. The reason is one of the most dangerous words in the English language when it comes to infectious disease. Closure. A cabin that sits empty for months, from October through April, let us say, is not just a dusty room. It is an unmonitored, unventilated, undisturbed sanctuary for rodents. Mice move in during the colder months. They eat, they reproduce, they urinate on every surface, and they build nests inside the walls, under the floorboards, and in the cushions of your furniture. By the time you arrive in May to open up for the summer, the inside of that cabin has been thoroughly colonized. The most famous case in American history happened in Yosemite National Park in 2012. Visitors staying in specific signature tent cabins began falling ill with a mysterious respiratory illness. By the time investigators identified it as hantavirus, 9 people had been infected and 3 were dead. All of them had simply been sleeping in what they believed were clean, properly maintained vacation accommodations. The virus had been living in the insulation above the sleeping areas, deposited there by infected deer mice. The first thing most people do when they arrive at a cabin is throw open the windows and take a deep breath of that beautiful mountain air. If the air inside that cabin is contaminated, you have just delivered the virus directly into your lungs. The most dangerous moment is not sleeping there. It is that first hour, the airing out, the sweeping, the unpacking. That is the window where exposure risk is at its absolute peak. But if a cabin in the mountains sounds too remote to worry about, if you are thinking, I don't vacation in the wilderness, then place number 3 is going to make you deeply uncomfortable. Because this one is not in the mountains. It is in your city. And there is a very good chance you sit near it every single day. Place 3, your parked car. This one is deeply unsettling, and it is the one that catches people most off guard. Mice and rats do not just enter buildings. They enter vehicles. A car that sits parked in a driveway, a parking garage, or on the street is, from a rodent's perspective, a perfect shelter. Warm engine bays, foam insulation in the doors, fabric seats, and the dark cavities under dashboards make cars ideal nesting sites. Rodents enter through drainage holes, vents, and tiny gaps in door seals. They do not need much space. And once inside, they behave exactly as they do in a garage or a cabin. There are documented cases, not theoretical, documented, of people contracting hantavirus after getting into their own vehicles. One man in the American Southwest opened his truck in the morning, noticed it smelled strange, and within 3 weeks was in intensive care. Investigators found a mouse nest behind his dashboard and evidence of extensive rodent activity throughout the vehicle. Think about what happens every morning when you get in your car. You adjust the vents. The heating or air conditioning system kicks on. Air is drawn from inside the car, air that may have been circulating through rodent-contaminated insulation, and blown directly at your face for minutes or hours at a time. If you have ever found mouse droppings in your car, even just 1 or 2, and cleaned them up without a mask, you need to understand what that means. You were breathing in the environment where an infected rodent was living. But here is where it gets darker. The car scenario is frightening because it is intimate and enclosed. But place number 4 takes that enclosed space danger and scales it up to the size of an entire building, one that you have almost certainly walked through. Place 4. Storage units. Storage facilities are one of the most overlooked hantavirus risk environments in the world, and here's why they are uniquely dangerous. They combine every single factor that creates maximum risk into one location. Low foot traffic, poor ventilation, dark, undisturbed spaces, cardboard boxes, which mice love to nest in and urinate on, fabric items, old furniture, and soft materials that retain rodent waste. And critically, months or years of undisturbed occupation by any rodent that finds its way inside. Storage facilities are also rarely sealed to the degree needed to keep mice out. The rolling metal doors leave gaps at the floor. The walls share spaces with neighboring units and the building's interior. One infected mouse in a storage facility can contaminate dozens of units through shared wall spaces and ventilation gaps. When you go to retrieve your belongings from a storage unit, especially one you have not visited in months, you are opening a sealed, potentially heavily contaminated space and immediately beginning to move boxes, unfold items, and disturb every surface. Every action creates airborne particles. Multiple hantavirus cases in the American Southwest have been traced back to storage units. The victims were not hunters or farmers. They were ordinary people retrieving Christmas decorations, old tax documents, or children's clothes. And they had no idea what they were walking into. Now, what if I told you that place number 5 on this list is not a dusty storage unit or an old cabin? It is a place that looks clean, bright, and modern. A place specifically designed for health and safety. And yet it carries one of the most specific and terrifying risks on this entire list. Place 5. Hospitals and healthcare settings, the Andes virus exception. For almost every known strain of hantavirus, hospitals are safe. Healthcare workers are not at risk from treating patients with the disease, because standard strains do not spread from person to person. You can sit next to someone with Sin Nombre virus, the most common North American strain, and you will not catch it from them. But one strain breaks that rule entirely. Andes virus, the exact strain confirmed this week on that cruise ship in the Atlantic, has been documented spreading from person to person. Not through the air like influenza, but through close, prolonged contact. household members, intimate partners, and historically, in at least some cases, caregivers. In a 1996 outbreak in Argentina, Andes virus jumped from patients to family members and close contacts in a pattern that confirmed person-to-person transmission. In that outbreak, the virus did something no other hantavirus strain had ever done before. It moved through a social network of human beings rather than from rodent to human. In hospital settings during Andes virus events, healthcare workers without proper protective equipment have been exposed. Secondary infections have occurred. And this is what makes the current 2026 cruise ship outbreak so alarming to scientists. In a closed environment, a ship at sea, if this virus is capable of person-to-person spread, a cluster of 7 cases could become something far worse. Medical professionals treating confirmed Andes virus patients now work under biosafety protocols that were, until very recently, considered unnecessary for any hantavirus strain. The world is watching this outbreak very carefully. And what happens next may force us to completely rewrite what we think we know about this virus. But let us come back to more familiar ground, because place number 6 is somewhere you might be heading this very weekend. Place 6. Hiking trails, campsites, and national parks. The great outdoors. Fresh air, open skies, beautiful scenery. And one of the most consistent environments for hantavirus exposure anywhere in the world. The reason is ecological. The deer mouse, the primary carrier of Sin Nombre virus in North America, is one of the most abundant small mammals on the continent. It lives in forests, grasslands, scrublands, and rocky terrain. Basically everywhere that hikers and campers go. And unlike many wild animals, deer mice are not afraid of human-occupied spaces. They are attracted to food, warmth, and shelter. A tent is a shelter. A backpack with food in it is a food source. A campfire ring with crumbs and grease is a buffet. When people sleep in tents on ground that is used regularly by deer mice, they are sleeping in close proximity to rodent territory. If the mice have been active in that area, and they almost certainly have, the soil, the leaves, and the air around ground level can contain contaminated particles. Simply pitching a tent and sweeping the floor of a shelter cabin can be enough to create the aerosol exposure needed for infection. Hikers face additional risk when they explore caves, rocky overhangs, and enclosed shelters along trails. These are precisely the kinds of spaces where rodents nest and where dried urine and feces accumulate over years. A hiker ducking under a rock ledge to take shelter from rain is placing their face directly in what may be a highly concentrated rodent nesting area. In the American West, national parks have issued hantavirus warnings repeatedly over the years. Yosemite, Grand Canyon, Rocky Mountain. The danger is real, documented, and present on nearly every major trail system. But you do not need to be deep in the wilderness. Because place number 7 brings hantavirus right to the edge of your suburban neighborhood, in a location you probably have strong opinions about but may have never considered a health risk. Place 7. Farm buildings, barns, and agricultural sites. Farmers and agricultural workers have among the highest rates of hantavirus exposure of any occupational group in the world. And it is not hard to understand why. Barns are rodent paradise. Grain, hay, warmth, structural complexity, every element that attracts mice and rats is present in abundance. A working barn can house dozens of rodents without anyone noticing. They live inside the bale walls, in the grain storage, in the feed rooms. They urinate on everything. And the people who work in these spaces breathe that air for hours every single day. But the risk is not limited to active farmers. It extends to anyone who visits or works on agricultural properties. Farm workers, seasonal laborers, tourists visiting rural agro-tourism sites, people buying fresh produce at farm stands who wander into an outbuilding to use the restroom. In South America, where Andes virus is endemic, agricultural communities in Argentina and Chile have some of the highest hantavirus mortality rates in the world. Farm laborers working in fields and grain storage facilities represent the primary demographic in outbreak statistics. The case fatality rate in these regions runs between 30 and 50%. What makes this particularly heartbreaking is that these are often the communities least equipped to handle a case of hantavirus. Far from specialist hospitals, far from ECMO machines, far from the intensive care resources that can cut the death rate in half. The people most exposed to this virus are often the people with the least access to the treatment that might save them. And yet, for all the danger that rural and agricultural environments carry, place number 8 might be the one that disturbs you most deeply, because it is not outside at all. It is inside your home, in a room you go to every single morning. Place 8. Your kitchen, specifically behind the appliances. No one wants to think about this. But the space behind your refrigerator, underneath your stove, and inside the walls adjacent to your kitchen cabinets is one of the most rodent-trafficked areas in any home. And most people never look there. Not once. Not for years. Mice enter kitchens through utility gaps around pipes, through gaps in cabinet bases, through the spaces where electrical cords enter walls. They do not need much. A quarter-inch gap will do. Once inside the wall voids and the spaces behind large appliances, they have warmth, darkness, and, critically, access to food. The crumbs inside your stove. The grease behind the drip pan. The forgotten food particles under the refrigerator's kick plate. An infected mouse living in the wall behind your kitchen can contaminate that environment for months. When you pull out the refrigerator to clean behind it, if you ever do, every particle of dust, every dried fragment of rodent waste, becomes airborne in your most enclosed indoor space. What should terrify you about this scenario is not just the exposure risk itself. It is the concentration. A garage or a barn is large. The particles disperse. A kitchen is small and often poorly ventilated. Any airborne contamination stays in that space for much longer. Health authorities have documented hantavirus cases in people who had no idea how they were exposed. No camping trips. No barns. No storage units. Just their own homes, specifically in rodent-accessible areas they had never considered a threat. The virus was living behind their refrigerator. They just never knew to look. But if the domestic risk surprises you, then place number 9 is going to challenge everything you believe about where disease can and cannot reach you. Because it involves the most modern, controlled, and seemingly impenetrable environment on this list. Place 9. Cruise ships and enclosed transit vessels. Until this week, you could have argued, with reasonable scientific backing, that hantavirus was essentially a land-based risk. A wilderness risk. A rural risk. The kind of thing that happened in cabins and barns, not in the middle of the ocean. That argument no longer holds. On the 2nd of May 2026, the World Health Organization received a report of a cluster of severe respiratory illness aboard a cruise ship traveling in the Atlantic Ocean. The ship, carrying 147 passengers and crew, had 7 people sick, 2 confirmed cases of hantavirus, 5 suspected, including 3 dead, 1 critically ill, and 3 with mild symptoms. The confirmed strain, Andes virus. The same strain that broke the person-to-person transmission rule. Illness onset occurred between the 6th and 28th of April, a 3-week window during which infected individuals were living, eating, and breathing in close proximity to hundreds of other people. As of today, investigators believe that at some point during a port stop in South America, the endemic zone for Andes virus, 1 or more passengers may have been exposed. What happened after that is the question that is making virologists around the world deeply uncomfortable. Because if that exposure led to person-to-person transmission in the enclosed environment of a cruise ship, then the model we have been using to assess hantavirus risk is fundamentally incomplete. A cruise ship is the perfect storm for infectious disease spread. Recirculated air. Shared dining spaces. Close social contact. Entertainment venues that pack hundreds of people together. Buffet lines. And a medical bay that is not designed to handle biosafety level 4 equivalent pathogens. The WHO has assessed the current global risk as low. But they are watching. And they are updating. This outbreak has not fully played out yet. And what investigators find in the coming days, about the transmission chain, about how the virus moved through that ship, may change public health guidance around Andes virus forever. But for the final place on this list, we return to somewhere close to home. Somewhere unassuming. Somewhere you have been hundreds of times. And it is arguably the most overlooked hantavirus risk site in the developed world. Place 10. Office buildings, schools, and commercial spaces with rodent infestations. This is the one that nobody talks about. Because it requires admitting something that building owners and property managers desperately do not want the public to know. Rodent infestations are not confined to old farmhouses and wilderness cabins. They occur in office buildings, schools, restaurants, warehouses, retail stores, and commercial properties in every major city in the world. Wherever there is food, warmth, and structural access, rodents will find a way in. And in large commercial buildings, with complex pipe networks, drop ceilings, wall voids, and electrical conduit running through every floor, rodents can colonize extensive areas without ever being detected by the humans working above, below, and around them. The risk profile in these environments is shaped by one critical factor. The spaces that rodents occupy are not the spaces humans regularly access. The drop ceiling above your office desk. The space inside the wall where the radiator pipes run. The crawl space under the raised flooring of the server room. These are rodent highways in many commercial buildings, and the humans on the other side of that ceiling tile or wall panel are breathing air that flows through those spaces via the building's HVAC system. Hantavirus cases in commercial settings are almost certainly underreported because the exposure chain is rarely obvious. A person who develops HPS and has not been camping or cleaning out a storage shed will typically be investigated for other causes first. The true connection to an office building or school with a rodent problem may never be established. But the biology does not care about the building's commercial status. The virus only cares that aerosolized particles from an infected rodent have made their way into a human airway. Whether that airway belongs to a farm worker in Patagonia or someone sitting at a desk in a downtown office building is irrelevant. The virus does not discriminate by zip code. The body's worst-case timeline. What hantavirus actually does to you. Here is the sequence of events that makes hantavirus so uniquely terrifying, and why the window for survival is so brutally narrow. After you inhale the contaminated particles, the virus does not immediately make you sick. It has an incubation period of 1 to 8 weeks, most commonly 2 to 4. During that entire time, you feel normal. You go to work. You exercise. You sleep. The virus is quietly replicating inside the endothelial cells that line your blood vessels. Then the first phase begins. Fever. Chills. Muscle aches so severe that some patients describe feeling like they have been beaten. Headache. Fatigue. Nausea. At this point, virtually every hantavirus patient in history has believed they had the flu. Or a stomach bug. They rest. They drink fluids. They wait to feel better. Some of them do not get better. Roughly 4 to 10 days after the first symptoms, in cases that progress to full HPS, the second phase hits. This is called the cardiopulmonary phase, and it can arrive within hours. The lungs begin filling with fluid. Breathing becomes labored. Oxygen levels drop. Blood pressure collapses. The heart, struggling to pump through lungs that are drowning in leaked fluid from damaged capillaries, begins to fail. At this stage, the only things standing between a patient and death are machines. Mechanical ventilation. And ideally, though only available in the best-resourced hospitals, ECMO, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. This device takes blood out of the body, oxygenates it externally, and pumps it back in, essentially doing the work of the lungs and heart simultaneously. ECMO cuts the death rate from approximately 50% down to around 20%. But ECMO machines are extraordinarily expensive, require intensive specialist training, and are not available in most hospitals, let alone in the rural communities where most hantavirus cases occur. There is no antiviral drug approved for hantavirus treatment. None. Research is ongoing. Vaccines are in development. But right now, in 2026, if you contract hantavirus and develop full HPS, the medical system's primary job is to keep your organs functioning long enough for your immune system to fight back. And you had better hope you are near a very well-resourced hospital when that phase begins. What actually kills you? The biology. When hantavirus reaches your lungs, it targets the capillaries, the smallest blood vessels in your body. The endothelial cells lining those capillaries are the virus's preferred replication site. As the immune system responds to the infection, the resulting inflammation causes those capillary walls to become permeable. They leak. Fluid pours out of the blood vessels and into the lung tissue. This is pulmonary edema. Your lungs, which are designed to transfer oxygen into your blood, are filling with the fluid that belongs inside your blood vessels. You cannot extract oxygen from fluid. You begin to suffocate from the inside, with no physical obstruction, just your own body's immune response causing you to drown in yourself. The heart, simultaneously, is struggling. Reduced oxygen delivery. Dropping blood pressure. Reduced cardiac output. This is why the condition is sometimes called Hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome, because the cardiovascular collapse is as life-threatening as the respiratory failure. The immune system is not failing to respond. It is responding too hard, in exactly the wrong way, in exactly the wrong place. How to actually protect yourself. The list of precautions is not complicated, but the commitment to following them in environments you consider familiar and safe, that is where most people fall short. When cleaning any enclosed space that may have had rodent activity, a garage, a cabin, a storage unit, a shed, the protocol is specific. Do not sweep. Do not vacuum without a HEPA filter. Wet down the area first with a diluted bleach solution, which deactivates the virus. Wear a properly fitted N95 respirator, not a surgical mask, not a cloth mask. Wear gloves. Work in a ventilated space with windows and doors open for at least 30 minutes before you enter. If you find a dead rodent, do not pick it up bare-handed. Gloves, a bag, and sealed disposal. Do not handle it in a way that might aerosolize anything. For cabins and vacation properties, ventilate thoroughly before cleaning. Open every window and door and allow fresh air circulation for at least 30 minutes before entering to sweep, wipe, or handle items. For vehicles with suspected rodent activity, wear a mask when inspecting the interior. Have the ventilation system inspected. Do not run the air system before cleaning. Seal your home. Every gap around pipes, around utility entries, around the base of your garage door. Mice need only 6 millimeters. Go around your home and treat every exterior gap as a potential entry point. And understand this, even a clean-looking environment can be contaminated. The virus is invisible. The particles are invisible. You cannot see them, smell them, or taste them. The only safe assumption in a potentially contaminated space is that the risk is real until proven otherwise. Closing. The virus that refuses to stay in one place. When Hantavirus was first identified in the United States in 1993, in that dramatic outbreak at the Four Corners, it was classified as a rural wilderness threat. A disease of isolated communities, farmers, and outdoor adventurers. Something the average urban or suburban person did not need to worry about. Then in 2012, it showed up in Yosemite's tourist accommodations and killed people who were on vacation. Now in 2026, it has appeared on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic, with a strain capable of person-to-person transmission. In the most socially connected, enclosed, international environment possible. This virus does not respect the categories we have placed it in. It does not stay in the wilderness. It follows rodents, and rodents go everywhere humans go. It lives in our garages and our kitchens and our cars. It hides behind our appliances and inside our office ceilings. And in the form of Andes virus, it has now demonstrated that under the right conditions, it does not even need a rodent to get from one person to the next. The case fatality rate has not changed. The fact that there is no cure has not changed. The fact that the window between "I feel a little sick" and "I need a machine to breathe for me" can be measured in hours, that has not changed. What has changed is where you can encounter it. And if this video has done its job, you now know exactly where those places are, and more importantly, what to do about them. If this video opened your eyes to something you did not know before, share it with someone. It might be the most important thing you send them this year. Like, share, subscribe.